the United States, and specifically the Biden-Harris administration, continues to give Israel more than it has ever received as a reward for making Biden angry. All of those times we heard those leaked accounts of Biden fulminating at Netanyahu, slamming phones down, calling Netanyahu a rogue actor. The Biden administration is actually giving Netanyahu and the Israeli military a supplementary force of 100 American troops inside Israel as active combatants who will participate now in combat as operators of the extremely expensive THAAD, or Terminal High Altitude Anti-Aircraft Defense, or Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, which is an anti-ballistic missile system. I think it's a lesson for a lot of other leaders in the world. The way to get Biden's attention and to get favors from him and Kamala Harris is to make them extremely angry, to flout them, defy them, and to undercut their soft power, because that's what Netanyahu has done at every step here.
There was an article recently in the Washington Post, and it quotes Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin talking about what Israel is doing. And he says that Israel is, quote, playing with house money. And what he means by that, the Post says, is that Israel knows that with all this U.S. military weaponry in the region, Israel can do whatever it wants, and that the U.S. will back it up.
Yep.
So playing with house money. That's the way. That's how it's described. So this claim by Biden that all this is an attempt to de-escalate. That's why he's sending this new missile system to Israel. That's why he's sending thousands of more troops, doubling U.S. air power in the region. You know, it's not de-escalating. Lloyd Austin is right. It's playing with house money. It's being able to be aggressive because it knows that the U.S. will back it up militarily.
It all seems like Biden's tirades and the anger and the calls for a ceasefire, it's all been a charade. The mask is completely off right now with this gigantic gift to Israel, and it exposes much more than the weakness of the Biden administration, as we'll explain.
Right overseas now, and word tonight that the U.S. is sending an anti-missile defense system to Israel and deploying 100 U.S. troops to operate it. The system is intended to help Israel fend off any future attacks from Iran. Let's bring in ABC's Matt Gutman. He's live from Tel Aviv tonight. Matt, what more are you learning about this new development?
Rachel, the Pentagon is saying a clear message with this deployment that it's working in lockstep with Israel to help it fend off any additional possible Iranian ballistic missile strike, and that it's working with Israel to help it calibrate its response to that historic ballistic missile strike from October 1st. Over 180 bus-sized missiles fired into Israel, and more of those missiles penetrating Israel's air defenses than many here expected. One reason that Israel has vowed such a ferocious response. Now, I'm told it'll be at least 4 days before that missile battery is operational. And remember, Rachel, those 100 troops are just a fraction of the total of 40,000 U.S. troops operating in the Middle East right now. But this is the first time that U.S. troops will be on the ground and operational in Israel since just after October 7th. And it's happening as this conflict between Israel and Hezbollah is intensifying. Hezbollah launching more attacks today than in any day since the war began, including a drone attack just about 30 miles from where we are right now, in which Israel says about 70 people were wounded, Rachel.
Well, doesn't look like Iron Dome is working. Luckily, we didn't waste any U.S. tax dollars on that, did we? Oh, yeah, right.
It wasn't just 70 wounded. It was 4 Israeli soldiers also killed.
Probably more. I mean, they say 6 critically injured, and who knows what's behind the censorship policy.
Yeah. But again, note that unlike Israel, Hezbollah is attacking a military site.
Yep.
Right. And look what happens when they do. They hit their target.
So this is the attack in Binyamina between Tel Aviv and Haifa, in which a series of Hezbollah drones struck an Israeli military base of the Golani Brigade while they were having lunch. Completely legitimate military target in a military conflict. And apparently Israeli Army Chief of Staff Herzl Halevi was present on the base, and Hezbollah knew this through its intelligence channels. So I don't know, I guess the Wile E. Coyote Looney Tunes pager attack and the killing of Hassan Nasrallah only served to escalate the conflict and not actually completely cripple Hezbollah.
Mm-hmm.
They're not done. They're far from done. In fact, they seem to be gathering strength. So that's one takeaway. The other takeaway, I mean, the key one here, well, there are two. One, Iron Dome is not working. We see more and more missiles, rockets, Hezbollah rockets are slipping through. They hit Haifa as well. There are sirens going off all around Tel Aviv all day today. The city's basically been shut down. This is central Israel, so they're reaching further and further, demonstrating more range. These are not hypersonic missiles that can be guided by a team on the ground. These are essentially guided rockets, and some of them are getting through. This is not just, it's the Arrow system, it's the Iron Dome system. All of these systems that have been underwritten by U.S. taxpayers through Raytheon in partnership with the Israeli defense industries are not working.
Yeah.
What they did serve to do is give Israel carte blanche to exterminate civilians in Gaza because they pay no price. The deterrence from Gaza has been eliminated in many, well, not eliminated, but minimized through these systems. And they're actually made just for the homemade rockets that were crafted by the Al-Qassam brigades in Gaza. So they're dealing with the big boys now, and they have to bring in Americans with this THAAD system produced by Lockheed Martin, which was previously sold to United Arab Emirates. South Korea has it, which was a major escalation against North Korea, designed specifically to undercut negotiations between the North and the South and make it less important politically for South Korea to negotiate because they would have less to fear. It's not going to work. They still want to negotiate. But that's the point of these systems. They're not flawless. But what does it say about the relationship between the U.S. and Israel? For decades, we have been told that Israel is America's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Middle East. And there's this shirt that you can buy in West Jerusalem and in the Jewish quarter in the Old City in Jerusalem that like clueless Jewish American tourists like to wear. And it has Israeli, I think it has like an Israeli flag. No, it has an Israeli jet behind an American flag. And it says, "Don't worry, America, Israel is behind you."
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
That's been around forever. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're supposed to believe, that all we have to do is send Israel billions of dollars, which will come back to our defense industry, thereby creating jobs in America. And we can sit on our hands and watch them weaken the quote unquote terrorists and allow us and weaken Arab nationalism and make it easier for us to expropriate their resources. And that's not what's happening. We have seen on October 7th and since that Israel would not last 5 minutes as an ethno-supremacist Jewish neo-colony without the United States babysitting it with an air bridge of bunker buster bombs and every kind of tech advantage that it can deploy. And it's still struggling. It's struggling so mightily that it now needs Americans. It now needs the stupid Goyim to come support them, to save them with their technical wherewithal. I thought they were so smart and they had these, like, they could plant explosives in pagers and could do so much. The Mossad could reach and kill anyone around the globe, but no, they need us, America's Christian soldiers, to save the Jewish ethno-supremacist state. So it completely exposes the fraud of Israel as an American ally or even an American proxy. And what's really happening here is America is having to preserve this simply because of the idea that Zionism represents to the Zionist billionaire class that is funding the re-election of Kamala and the re-election of Donald Trump at the same time. It is the passionate attachment that former Assistant Secretary George Ball wrote about in his twilight years. This is all about a passionate attachment. It is not about American national security, American interests. And it is a disastrous decision that could lead to, there are so many dangerous scenarios that could unfold in the coming days.
Yeah, and we're seeing it now with Lebanon. There's talk now of Netanyahu threatening to strike Beirut in ways that he hasn't yet. And why would he do that? Because their Israeli doctrine is to punish civilians for acts of military resistance against it. So
Yeah.
Hezbollah strikes an Israeli military site. Lebanon, the people of Lebanon will bear the brunt by Israel targeting them. And that's who's prepared. And already today, there are more attacks by Israel in Lebanon. And also Israel has been attacking UN peacekeepers inside Lebanon. And Netanyahu's directly ordered them to get out of the way. Those were his words, saying that Hezbollah is basically embedding with them and using them as shields, which of course is the standard Israeli lie. And this is what Israel's done forever. You know, they have a long record of attacking UN peacekeepers who are in the way of the real target, which is Lebanese civilians. So the Qana massacre, 1996, attacking a UN base. There was a subsequent UN investigation which showed that Israel deliberately struck this site. The Clinton administration pressured the UN not to publish it, but eventually it got leaked. So this is a long-standing pattern.
Yeah, I mean, and this here's a. Well, let's get into the UN peacekeepers in a second. I mean, I think there's more to say here about the THAAD system and U.S. troops being delivered to Israel. It's another major mask-off moment for the Biden-Harris administration, because there have been reports that the Biden administration has been seeking to prevent Israel from attacking sensitive sites inside Iran that would lead to a regional war. So how would you do that? I mean, in any negotiation, when you're dealing with an actor who is off the chain, kind of crazy, unreliable, unstable, but you care about them, maybe like in a one-on-one interaction, and as someone who's dealing with addiction in your family, do you give them some of the drugs that they seek in order to stop their addiction? No, but that's precisely what Biden has always done with Netanyahu. He's bear hugged him, and he gives him whatever he wants at the front end of negotiations. And then Netanyahu goes and does whatever he wants because he already got the concession and the goodies that he sought. And that's what he's getting here, because he's getting more deterrence so that he can carry out, or Israel can carry out, the attacks on Iran, on Iranian nuclear sites, for example, on Iranian oil installations, for example, and with the belief that the U.S. will have his back and that it will have these sophisticated air defense systems that can send interceptors outside the atmosphere and weaken any Iranian ballistic strike. That's not going to be the case, but that's what he might be led to believe. So it's just pure stupidity on the part of Biden, unless they actually we could say it's stupid, or they're just embracing one of the most radical foreign policies of any administration, possibly even more radical than the second Bush administration. And they're just on board with this policy of Netanyahu of taking Iran to the brink of war.
In terms of radical, I mean, there is something, I mean, obviously the invasion of Iraq was a titanic crime, but at least you can say in that case that Iraq had an army. Like, Iraq could put up somewhat of a fight. And the U.S. then faced an armed insurgency. In Gaza, it's a death camp where people can't leave. It's a trapped, defenseless death camp where the only resistance comes like directly in armed combat on the ground. And in that case, Israel takes some casualties and runs away. But there isn't that much of that. It's mostly just using the most powerful weapons in the world, which Biden has furnished at every single turn, 2,000-pound bombs, to bomb people from afar, destroy all the infrastructure, all the mosques, the schools, hospitals being attacked. I mean, what's the latest attack on a hospital? Al-Aqsa. We should get into it. Producing some of the most horrific images of this war so far. People burning alive, people attached to IVs, burning alive because Israel's bombing this courtyard where people are taking refuge at Al-Aqsa. And this is not the first time Al-Aqsa has been attacked. I think it's like the 7th time this year alone that Al-Aqsa has been attacked. But the images from this one, everybody's seen them now. We don't need to show them.
Well,
but burning people alive. Yeah.
We'll get into that. I mean, yes, and it's also a reward for Israel as it is carrying out a Holocaust in Gaza, which we can see in real time. What's happening in Jabalia, which we'll talk about, is one of the most extreme acts of ethnic cleansing that humanity has ever witnessed, and it's being witnessed in granular fashion. So again, it's a reward. You have U.S. soldiers next to sensitive sites in Israel with these interceptors. There's a possibility Iran could strike again if Israel provokes it. And so what Israel is able to do here with the Biden-Harris administration support is use Americans and American lives as human shields by placing them near targets it doesn't want Iran to hit, because Iran will be reluctant to see the U.S. enter the conflict. So it doesn't want to kill American service members. And U.S. troops become human tripwires. They therefore become human tripwires for conflict with Iran. And so Israel would like to see those American troops get killed. Let's be clear about this. There is nothing more that Netanyahu would like to see than American troops getting killed. And Netanyahu is going to do everything possible to tempt, taunt, and provoke Iran into wounding and killing American service members so he can fulfill his greatest dream, which is to get the U.S. into a direct war with Iran, because it's the only way that Netanyahu thinks he can fully destroy the Islamic revolutionary government in Iran with a superpower like the U.S. doing his dirty work. It's why he went to Washington during the Obama administration and accused Obama of repeating the sin of Franklin D. Roosevelt and not bombing the railways to Auschwitz. And he compared Iran's nuclear facilities, like at Natanz, to the railways to Auschwitz. So we know this is what Netanyahu wants. And it's Biden's fault, and it's Kamala Harris's fault, and it's Tony Blinken's fault, and Brett McGurk's fault if one of these American soldiers is harmed, and if we go towards a regional war. This is the most extreme, insane foreign policy team I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever.
And they're taking their cues also. Like they're basically an extension of the second Bush administration. Condoleezza Rice, when Israel attacked Lebanon in 2006, and there was so much giddiness in Washington that finally Israel was going to destroy Hezbollah, which is a major deterrent to Israeli-U.S. hegemony. Condoleezza Rice, as Israel was slaughtering civilians in Lebanon, Condoleezza Rice called this the birth pangs of the new Middle East. And what is Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein, the Israeli-born Biden official, what are they saying behind the scenes, according to Politico? That Israel attacking Lebanon and trying to take out Hezbollah, this is part of a new Middle East. This is an opportunity for new Middle East. And that's why they're also pressuring Lebanon to basically install a new president, because they want to seize this moment of Israel slaughtering civilians where they perceive that Hezbollah is weak to advance their agenda, where Hezbollah, because it resists U.S.-Israeli hegemony, can be undermined. So they're just continuing the Bush administration's legacy, but doing it in a more extreme way, because the Bush administration, although they gave full support to Israel, cracking down on the Second Intifada, they still imposed some constraints on Israeli atrocities. Like there was still some criticism from George W. Bush when Israel killed civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, under Biden, there's just a full green light, and there's way more weaponry. The amount of weaponry that Biden has given Israel is unprecedented. Just rearming Israel every single turn.